It's
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our meeting for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. This is a video and in person. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to start off the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as Williams Treaties First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. The Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of the lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. That I'll move on to cell phones and ask everyone to please put your cell phones on vibrate or turn them off so it doesn't disturb the meeting. And I'll remind council of declaration of pecuniary interest. If it arises, you can declare it then or now. Anyway, we have minutes here from the regular council meeting of March 19th. If all's in order, I'll look for a motion to
question on the minutes on page 11. No, it's yeah, page 11. I'd like to speak to the decline, to the motion that was declined. I have no problem with it. It was a council decision. What I'd like to address is the comments of the head of council. I also read the municipal act that outlines in broad terms everyone's roles and responsibility. What I have a difficulty with is the miscommunication in an open meeting saying I should read the agenda, make notes, and talk to staff prior to the meeting. I review each and every agenda, make notes, talk to staff about the agenda item if required. So for those comments to be made was very troubling, inaccurate, and hurtful. Last point, that is also contained in the municipal act that each and every elected representative of HBM has the same authority. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm sorry if it was taken that way, but all I was trying to say was when we get to those two items on the agenda that we try to be prepared. All of us, not just you. It wasn't to center you out.
Well, the motion was made by me, so it would have to be directed to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion was defeated. Okay, so I'll look for a motion to receive the balance of the minutes there. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconder, Councilor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so with that, we're going to move into delegations, and our first delegation here is Guinevere Davison. And I just want to give her a bit of an intro. When I first got on council, I didn't realize it was so long ago. We had student council appointees, and it was actually almost 20 years ago. And we went through a series of I guess about 6 students came in and they gave us updates of what's happening with youth and you know, over at Norwood District High School, things that's happening over there. And I found it really informative. And we haven't done it for quite a few years. And I was talking about it here last year, and Guinevere was, she was the warden for the day at the county, and she was full of energy. And when we found out that she was from Havelock-Belmont-Methuen, when she was introduced to us, the deputy mayor and myself looked at each other and said, "What's that look?" And it's like, we're thinking of a student appointee, and you would be great at this to start us off. So with that, we did make arrangements to speak to Guinevere, and so you're the pilot. You can let us know if it was beneficial for you, and it's always good to you know, keep in touch with local politics, and for youth especially, it's usually the up and comers. So thank you for coming today, and you know, if you've got anything to say, or we're going to set it up with a video. So, okay. Sound? What you said, Guinevere?
You can narrate it while it's playing.
I really just talked about that we don't really have recycling or garbage pickup where I live. And it's kind of inconvenient sometimes to have to store it or take it down every single week. So if we had like garbage and recycling pickup where I live, that'd be very good thing.
You were showing things around the county for that one there, so.
I took a few pictures myself and then took a few of them off Google.
So one of the things we talked about, you know, towards over her visit here, that possibly at the end, she can do something like that for Havelock-Belmont-Methuen and the things that you know, that you enjoy about Havelock-Belmont-Methuen towards the end. So thank you for coming today, and yeah, we'll look forward to updates from you for what's happening over at Norwood at the high school, because that is our high school for Havelock-Belmont-Methuen too. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
With that, we'll move into our second delegation, and Patricia Bromfield and Randy Mello. Dave is the paramedic. So.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the council, it's a pleasure to be here again. It's been quite a few years since we've been to Havelock. It's great to be back. We used to do an annual trip around all the lower tiers and doing it up our paramedic service, and ended kind of pre-COVID, and it was difficult to get that back going again. So we'd like to pledge to do that again, to get it back on our annual business plan, to come around and give you an update. This one is going to be particularly interesting, I think, because we've added the community paramedic program to it. So we have kind of two separate presentations. So again, I've been introduced by Randy Mello, as your agenda says, outgoing chief of the paramedic service. I'm still working with the county as the senior director of emergency and shared services and the deputy CAO, and I will be retiring. December 20th will be my last working day with the county. So I'm pleased to introduce Patricia Bromfield. She's our chief of paramedics. Patricia brings a lot of experience. I worked with Patricia in Forth Lakes when I was working with that service a few years ago. She also worked for a number of years in Toronto, various leadership roles. So we're in good hands with Patricia as our new chief. So in terms of an update, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, that's going to be difficult for you to read, but we had a PowerPoint, but I don't think we actually were able to. Here you go. Don't think we're able to actually use that, but in terms of our update, Peterborough Paramedics now employs about 74 full-time paramedics. We also have about 15 community paramedics. So we have two different programs. I'll talk about the funding and the structure shortly. We have about 10 management staff plus 8 part-time supervisors. So we've grown considerably. Two FTEs, 1 full-time and 2 part-time logistics staff. We have a fleet that 17 ambulances. We put a little over 1 million kilometers on per year. If you do the math on that, an oil change every 5,000, that's a lot of oil changes, a lot of work on the vehicles, a lot of equipment and supplies. So it takes a number of logistics staff to take care of that. We have 4 administration vehicles. We have a bariatric vehicle. So for the very heavy patients, we have specialized equipment to lift them. We're running out of 6 stations currently. So I think probably the last time I was here, we likely had Clonsilla in place. That was one of our more recent additions. The headquarters at 310 Armour Road, Clonsilla, Lakefield, Norwood, Apsley, and we run seasonally out of Buckhorn. And we're, as it says on the slide, we're in the final sort of stages of opening up a station in Cavan Monaghan, connected with the fire hall that's being built there. So that'll be open hopefully fall this year. We've pre-staffed that. We've added additional staff over the past couple of years so that we have enough staff to move an ambulance from our headquarters down to Cavan when it opens. Go to the next slide, please. Go back from vacation with my 2 grandkids. Both were having the runny noses and stuff. So I've got a bit of a cough. So if I lose my voice, I apologize. Trish will take over. So I think we might have missed or was on that previous slide. I just wanted to, we do have 2 levels of care, primary care and advanced care paramedics. Yeah, that's the part there. we've moved up our numbers on the advanced care paramedic side. So they bring a little more advanced skill set to some of the calls, almost to the point, it's a bit of a cliche, but we talk about bringing emergency room to the patient, and that's what the advanced care paramedics really do. So we've added a number of those. We're at about 35% trained to the ACP level. And we're continuing to add to that. We found some funding sources to be able to provide training to an additional number. We don't have an actual planned target. We would like to get to 50% level so that every truck could have an advanced care and a primary care paramedic on it. But we're now at 35% and we're pushing that up a bit. You can go to the next slide. So the structure of our service, I like to talk about it in pillars. We really have sort of 4 pillars. We have our administrative branch of that or division, and that would be the chief's office and the administrative staff. And then there are 3 other sort of operational pillars. So operations would be the equipment, the supplies, the staffing of the vehicles, the oversight of the supervision on the road, the maintenance, logistics, that all falls under operations. We have a division called professional support. Old terminology was quality assurance or professional standards. We're really rephrasing that. Those are very harsh words. That's not how we want to provide clinical excellence. We want to do it through supportive management of our staff. So the professional support division does the training, the wellness, the education, and the quality assurance components. And the last part, now that is really a full pillar of our service, is the community paramedic programming. We'll go into more detail on that over the next, probably the next presentation. The funding, excuse me. As you're probably aware, 50% of our funding comes from the province of Ontario. So after the downloading or the LSR that happened, I think under the Harris government many years ago, there was a shift of the funding for paramedic services over to the municipalities at 50%. So the province pays 50% based on the previous year's operating budget. And then the city and the county share the rest. And that's based on the population from the latest census figures. The province's portion is always a year behind. They base it on the previous year's council approved operating. So what generally happens is when we enhance, we end up paying by the municipality pays up front and then the province catches up. But they're generally pretty good at being at their 50% level. So 50% goes to the 50% is funded by the province, 50% split between the city and the county. Current calculation would be 56.6% city, 43.4% county. So half the province, the other half split up that way. That covers about 22.4, wish it was 2.4, I'm sure you do. $22.4 million budget on the 911 side. We, on the community paramedic side, are 100% funded from the province, and that's just shy of $4 million now, 3.8 million. So our total budget would be closer to that 26 million, but the province is coming through with almost 4 in that. Next slide, please. I'll go into more detail on the community paramedic piece in a separate presentation, so you can actually advance one more. That's good there. There is one legislated reporting requirement for a paramedic service, and that's our response time. And it's based on medical acuity. There are 5 levels of medical acuity, and then cardiac arrest is separated out from that. So if you just slide up just a little bit further, this graph kind of shows, that's a little too far. Oh, there it is. This graph shows our results over the last 5 years, each of those targets. So we target cardiac arrest 50% of the time, getting there in 6 minutes. We just made that this year. We're getting busier, it's becoming more difficult. The next level up is our sickest patients. They're category 1 of the Canadian triage and acuity scale. We're targeting 66% of the time to be there in 8 minutes. And we missed that by 3 calls last year. But we also added staffing halfway through the year. So I feel that, the annualized impact of the enhancement will improve that somewhat. But you can see the trends. Basically, all of our targets were sort of getting a little deterioration in how we're responding. So that kind of shows us in the future a need to probably enhance services if call volumes continue to go up. And we have that in our master plan to enhance the service in 2026. So this really is, it's legislated. We actually report a whole suite of KPIs to the county and to the city, including average response times and breakdowns by the lower tier municipality. And that's a more important or meaningful measure to me. You move up one more slide, please. This is just a quick snapshot of our averages for each municipality, the city, and the county as a whole. You can see Havelock is the line to the far left, Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. Our average here was 16 minutes and 56 seconds, which is longer than we would like it to be. Again, call volumes are pulling our ambulances into the city. So this is a strategy that the chief is probably going to be looking at over the next few years. We've actually prioritized improving rural response times as part of our strategic plan. So we're going to look at that. We see that it is coming up in obviously Trent Lakes, North Kawartha, and up here in Havelock, where we're farther away from the ambulances. So that's something we're going to focus on over the next few years. Next slide, please. Our call volumes continue to come up. We have some good news, I think, in 2023. It didn't come up as quickly as it has been in the past. We're up about 2.26% overall on our vehicle movements. Sometimes there are more than one vehicle goes to a call. As an example, if a primary care paramedic goes and then an advanced care paramedic, we might send two. That counts in this graph as 2 calls. We're up about 2.26%. Our average over the last 5 years has been closer to the 4 or 5%. So it's starting to slow a little. We're hoping it is. We're hoping that some of the programming like community paramedicine and our public awareness campaigns like Is Your Urgency and Emergency is helping to reduce some of the less essential 911 calls. The other figure though is we count patient volume, not just vehicle movement and call volume, but patient volume. And that actually was up just less than 1%. Which again is a good sign. We think that there are some mitigation strategies that are helping out. Next slide, please. Everybody's favorite topic is offload delays. If we continue, this graph shows you different measures of our offload delays, average at hospital time, so arrive till we actually pull out of the garage, 90th percentiles, and then our offload time, which we count as in excess of 30 minutes at the hospital. And those are all continuing to rise. The numbers that are alarming here is that in 2023, we had 10,340 hours of time lost in the hospital in excess of that 30-minute period from the time we arrived. That's about 12% of our staffing, or about 9 full-time equivalents that we're losing to caring for patients in the hospital because we can't transfer care. We continue to work with PRHC, and I really can't say enough. This is not a PRHC problem. It's not a Peterborough problem. It's not an Ontario problem. This is happening nationwide. We've had some discussions with the province about how we mitigate this. And Trish and I were on a call with them. I described this as all of our programming in Peterborough and all over is plugging holes in a dike, and the province owns the dike. This is a healthcare system capacity problem. This is access to care, to primary care problems. So it's continuing to get worse. We do work very well with PRHC to try to mitigate this, but this is something right now that we really have to live with until the province, in my opinion, steps up. Bold statements, but you can do that when you're retiring. Next slide, please. So if you scroll just a little bit, I think there's some pie charts. I want to talk for a few minutes about our public survey. As I said before, we are only mandated to report our response times, but we think there are many more things we should be reporting on, and those are available in our KPI reports that went to council. We reported on clinical measures. We were doing very, very well. We report on even our carbon emissions, but the thing we've added over the last couple of years is our public satisfaction surveys. So we sent out a survey last year and again this year. It goes out through social media. It goes over the hospital bills. There were signs on the side of the road, things like that. And we opened that up for about 2 or so months. We're going to revisit that timing next year, I think, when Trish runs this. But we had a pretty good response back. Overall, we had, when you look at our call distribution, here in Havelock, only about 2% of our calls were in this region, but 5% of our survey respondents came from this region. So it tells me we had, fairly good uptake from your area on this survey. So go to the next graph, please. I won't expect you to be able to read all that, but I'll help you through this. This first one is overall satisfaction. Rural provision of care was the very first. How the respondents felt about the care that they were provided. Overall, in all areas, we had a 90% net good. So we measure this as if it was just okay, throw that number away. Let's see how many people said it was good and very good. So overall, 90% felt it was good care that was provided. Here in Havelock, it was actually 92% on the net good of provision and care side. So your residents reported that they felt our care was very good. Next slide, please. Next part, we asked a number. We were using sort of the main themes for the presentation. We had probably 20 different questions in there, but we were using 4 of the main themes. Trust and confidence in our service. So overall, 85% had high levels of confidence. There's actually 11% were confident, but we're using the net scores, so the high levels. Overall, 85% here in Havelock. The numbers were 85%, and then another 8 were just confident. So again, a high level of trust and confidence from your residents on our survey. Next slide, please. But making sure we're on the same one, waiting for an ambulance. Now, this was one that is kind of as expected. Again, we were surprised overall that 41% in all areas thought we arrived quicker than expected. Another 27% were as expected. So when you put that together, 68% thought our response time was pretty good. That's kind of unusual for an emergency service. So that's a good number. Here in Havelock, no surprise that there were a lower level of those who reported that we were quicker, but still there was 23% thought we were faster. So 1 in 4 thought faster than had been expected. So not high enough. We'd like to see it higher, and that's something to work on, is the response times to this community. Next slide, please. So overall satisfaction, this is one that kind of came out a little bit funny because we had improvements in all those other areas, but this one came down a little bit. We looked at 83% were net satisfied overall with the ambulance service provided. But then when you looked at the numbers, there were improvements in response times, improvements in satisfaction, improvements in a number of areas. When we look at the comments, this one came down. We feel that is completely correlated to the offload delays. Those were one of the big things. The other complaint we had was ride and comfort, which is our roads. So a little message to the municipalities, people are complaining. But overall, we had a high level of satisfaction, down a little bit. So something we'll consider in the future and continue to look at. We feel it's mostly associated with things outside of our authority. So they like the care, they like the response time, they felt confident. Overall, some decreases in satisfaction there. So that's kind of the overview of the paramedic service itself. We had a second presentation that I can go into on community paramedicine, or can answer questions on the 911 side, whichever way you'd like.
Is there any questions with the first part here? Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And some of this you might have already answered in your presentation because it was quite thorough, but I'll bring it up anyways. In terms of response times, you said that the way you correct it is to enhance service. Could you maybe go into a few of the ways that you would enhance service?
So through the mayor, response times are probably, they're associated with 2 things: the position of the vehicle and the availability of the vehicle. So enhancing service is one of the first things we turn to. We've tried to mitigate that growth so we can have more vehicles available. So the things like the community paramedic programs, trying to have them available more often. If they're available more often, that means we can keep them out in places like Norwood, closer to you, more often. So that's something we're continuing to work on. Enhancing the service is something that's going to come next. We have, right now we're running at about a 48% unit hour utilization rate. That means that ambulance is tied up and unavailable. The fleet is 45% of the time. When you get past 35%, there's kind of a common understanding that there's increased risk to the community. So that's response times and availability. So there comes a point where we have to add extra ambulances and staff. So that's the enhancement piece. The other thing that Patricia will be working on and the team will be working on through our strategic plan is our deployment strategies. We need to decide, again, focusing on urban versus rural response time. We need to decide what's the appropriate strategy. 72% of the call lines in the city. So obviously our risk at the surface is saying if we have one ambulance available, put it in the city. If we have 2 available, the city and Lakefield, so we have a deployment strategy that's based on that. We need to revisit that and decide whether that's appropriate, because we have to cover all areas, not just focus on the city. So maybe we lengthen the response time of the city a little bit by keeping trucks out in Norwood. So that's the kind of maybe the third way of looking at improving response times. There's enhancements, there's the availability piece, there's deployment strategies.
Thank you for
That's
that.
a long answer, wasn't it?
No, it was it's very good. Thank you very much. It kind of leads into my next question was about the rise in offload delays. Would the increase in response time because the ambulance into the hospital kind of contribute to that, I would imagine, right? In terms of that, you kind of, I don't know, you reference access to care problems, so maybe you could just be a little bit more specific in terms of what those would be.
Yeah,
Sorry.
through the mayor, no. You'll have me here all day if you keep asking.
Well, some of our residents would like to hear this.
This is a bit of a fashion. So connecting to your first question, I told you roughly 12% of our staffing we lose in hospital care, or 9 FTEs. It takes 8 FTEs to put an ambulance on the road. So basically equivalent to a 24-hour ambulance is sitting at the hospital caring for patients inside the doors. So if that was not there, then that would help to avoid enhancements. Access to care is both in home and access to primary care or urgent care is a big issue. We take a lot of patients to the hospital that probably could enter the healthcare system in another way. We talked about that in our Is Your Urgency Emergency campaign, where we're trying to help people to understand that they can go to the pharmacy for prescriptions now and those types of things. People often don't have an alternative but to go to Emerge. So going to Emerge either by ambulance or by walk-in plugs up that system. And I don't mean to offend the people who are going there. That's what they need, they feel they need to do, but it does plug up that system. Also, the discharge end at the hospital, getting patients home to open up beds, those things plug up the system. So access to primary care and home care all contribute to this. So it's a complex issue. That's why I say it's not a PRHC issue. We're trying to help mitigate by the community paramedic programs. We'll talk a little bit about that, providing some care in the homes, some earlier discharge from hospital, but that's definitely causing a lot of the strain that causes those increased response times.
Well, I'd like to thank you that's kind of what I was getting at, is that a lot of people, if their ambulance shows up late, they're obviously going to blame the paramedics. I've luckily been around working with you here for a few years, that it's not a paramedics problem, as you said, it's a healthcare problem. So, or the health system, exactly. So if people can kind of wrap their head around that and maybe direct some of their letters to provincial or federal level employees, right, that can deal with this would be helpful.
I would completely agree. Some of it we own our deployment strategies. We're doing our best to decrease risk by positioning ambulances where we do. Sometimes that increases response times in some areas. We own part of that. Availability of the vehicles. That's, my job is to give advice to council on what they need to do with their budgets. And then they've been very good to increase and enhance when we could, but we're losing that to that hospital system. So that, that's causing a lot of it.
Thank you very much, Randy.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Randy. I've had your service twice in the last month, and I just can't say enough good things. I'm not coming like this one. It must have been enjoyable because they were at my house very quickly. Amazing job. I'd like to just say kudos. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Questions? The one thing, Randy, that you touched on before when you're saying about getting busier is the remote areas that you're traveling to now. That might be something to do with some of the rough roads, but I think this is the third time I've seen this presentation because I'm on a few different committees. So I do know you like to play with numbers, and Tricia's got some big shoes to fill there. So so the thing about the remote areas that you're going to now, like I hear from people that they're seeing ambulances on the road they've never seen before. Is it calming down now, or is it getting worse? Like, with the people working from home at one time, a lot are going back to work.
It's certainly not getting any lesser. We have the combination of people that are working remotely. So there are in those community or those rural areas more often, people making that their permanent residence, moving into the area. it's not reducing at all. It's certainly our volumes in those areas are coming up. They're coming up though across the board at probably the same rate in the city and in the county. What we do find though is that, and again, you got me talking about numbers. When we talk about I call the propensity to call, the city residents, about 220 out of 1,000 are calling 911 per year. In the county, it's off the top of my head around 130, 140 per thousand. The average for the municipal benchmarking network, the paramedic services that report, is 127. So a little bit higher tendency to call in Peterborough County. That's because we don't have a lot of walk-in area clinics, those types of things, but a much higher propensity to call in the city. So the city's volume comes up. The amount that's changed with people living in the more remote areas is also coming up, but it's kind of offset by the city's volume.
Thank you. Any other questions with regard to that part of it? Okay, we'll move into the next.
Feel free to give me the hook if I go through community paramedicine. So I wanted to just kind of give you an update on what this is. Again, $3.8 roughly million, 100% funded by the province. And if you go to the next slide, what community paramedicine really is using the skills and abilities of paramedics to kind of fill some gaps in the system where there's an issue of getting home care services, or people are living with complex issues that don't necessarily fit into what the home care services are offering. The first part of this is really looking at helping people stay out of long-term care homes and actually age at home, healthy and safe. Go to the next slide. There are 3 different funding programs we have. The lion's share of this is from the Ministry of Long-Term Care. So that's focused on people that are on the long-term care wait list or soon to be on the long-term care wait list. We have 11 full-time paramedics completely paid by the province, supervisor and an administrative support person. The one to the far right is Ontario Health. So they split Ministry of Long-Term Care and Ministry of Health apart. So 2 different ministries really. Ontario Health is under the Ministry of Health, and they've funded a separate program. We have 3 full-time paramedics, and it used to be called the high intensity supports program. So people that just had these complex issues, likely to call 911, didn't have to be on the non-long-term care wait list side, but still were needing help to stay safely at home. So that's separately funded. Those 2 on the outside, we have about a 3-year stable funding agreement with the province. This is my issue going forward. It's going to be probably Tricia's problem and the county's problem. If this ever gets downloaded, there's going to be a decision on what we want to do in terms of funding this thing. If they said that it was going to be funded like the 911 side, that's 50%. So if there's advocacy to be done here, I think it's to continue to advocate for full funding of these programs. This piece in the center is the consumption and treatment site. We have a paramedic that's employed there, 2 paramedics, but 1 per day to provide medical care at the consumption and treatment site. And this is funded through various local programs. So if you go to the next slide. So what our community paramedics do, I won't go through the entire list, but it might surprise you to know that we're doing things like providing remotely connected vital signs monitor devices. So in the person's home, they put something on, press a button, and a paramedic in our headquarters will know what their pulse rate is, their blood pressures, their oxygen levels, all those types of things. So we can actually monitor somebody without physically being present. It works exceptionally well. We also have advanced cardiac monitoring. We have blood testing, even A1C testing for diabetes. We have point of care blood testing for things like infections. We're doing urinalysis in the homes to try to find things like urinary tract infections before they become something that takes an elderly person into the hospital with sepsis. So we're finding some of these issues before they happen. The coagulation testings, we're doing the INRs, avoiding people having to try to go to the emerge to get this kind of stuff done. We work exceptionally well with people with complex issues like COPD or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, congestive heart failure, diabetes. We're giving vaccines so that people don't have to go into the clinics to do it. The list goes on and on. So it's a bit surprising for people to see what paramedics actually are doing in terms of home care. Next slide, please. I'll leave those ones with you. That's just, it talks about the benefits. The benefits are keeping people safe. It's avoiding transports by ambulance quite often. It's avoiding some of that, patient flow issues in the hospital, both in the door and out the back doors. We're actually accepting patients on earlier discharges in order, like, because we can watch them through community paramedics to make sure they're safe. Go to the next slide, please. People always ask, how do we get involved in this program if we have a loved one or a family member or a friend? If you can scan that thing and it'll take you right to our website, but we're taking referrals both from primary care teams, but also from families and self-referrals. So you can go on the website, it'll walk you through the questions that need to be answered. Many areas won't accept self-referrals. We are able to accept those here in Peterborough County. Next slide, please. Just for a few minutes, I'll talk about our outreach team. This was something that was important to the community. We used to be involved in what's called the MSORT team. It's a multi-agency outreach team for people that are in the community that are at risk of or suffering from addiction issues. It was originally supported through a grant from the federal government called the Substance Use and Addiction Program. That grant is ending in April. So this year, or this month, it is ending. We found a way to use some of the CED funding from Ontario Health to be able to dedicate a paramedic back to this. So we have what's called the Community Paramedic Outreach Program, CPOP, doing the same type of thing. So if you move to the next slide, what this is about is things like we've had 80 people connected to mental health services through that team, 10 to 15 people who have actually, or per day, are actually getting wound care. I'm going to talk a bit about wound care. It's kind of a specialized thing for that community. Connection to community support. We've got people that have entered detox programs, connected with treatment programs. We do support. I know it's a difficult conversation at times about harm reduction, but we do support safe supplies, not safe drugs. We don't give out the drugs, but safe supplies to help individuals so that they can, we understand their addiction and they understand that it's going to continue for them until they can get help. So we support them to be healthy when they're doing it. So that's kind of what that program is about. Go to the next slide, please. So as I said, provincially, there's not a coordinated effort any longer. We found a way to implement this or continue this through our enhanced paramedic program. Other municipalities are doing a similar thing, but I think we're kind of out ahead of the curve on this one. Next slide, please. So just quickly to show you kind of the impact with that community of individuals who are precariously housed, unhoused, and have these issues, mental health and addiction issues. They often are suffering from things like wounds that are infected, and they can't and won't go seek help for it. So just to show you a bit of impact of this outreach team, this next slide is a little bit, if you're queasy, but it shows the progression of somebody's wounds that have been cared for by a specialist that we've trained. So moving from left to right, this individual, when we first saw this person, had wounds that were like this. They were at risk of losing their limbs, and not just obviously the terrible human factor to that, but the costs that come along with it. So over a few weeks, we have a specially trained individual on the CPOP team who's been able to basically heal those wounds out in the field. Like this is happening either at a clinic at one city or on the side of the road where we meet the people. So you go to the next slide. So we continue to look at what community paramedics can do. It's an important program. I think, we've talked about the potential to mitigate the 911 growth. We continue to see that there's huge value to the community. We're not trying to take anybody's place. We know we work very well with home and community care and other programs, but we're fitting into some gaps that are still there in the system, and we can continue to do that. You move to the next slide. I think there was one more there. Yeah, we're looking at things like we're working with the hospital on early discharge programming. So doing rounds with the hospital staff to see who we might be able to have discharged. We take care of them in the home. We're looking at ways to potentially take our low urgency 911 calls and actually send one person in one vehicle to see if we can assist them and help them to stay home rather than go to the hospital. So that's the code 3 diversion thing. It's just palliative care programs. We're looking at adding some Suboxone, which is actually helping if you can give this drug early when someone is post overdose. But prior to having withdrawals, we can give that drug. We're looking at trying to get that, right out in the field to try to do it in the community. So different things that are many different opportunities for the community paramedic program to continue to expand. I'll wrap it up because I know I went really long, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what our CP program is like.
Good information. I hopefully, Patricia, you can carry on in the years ahead as far as the information for the local municipalities.
Absolutely.
So
We're going to do that.
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a motion to receive the delegation moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, the next delegation here is Jewel Engineering, Pat Schick and Shannon Parkinson. Sorry, messed up the last name there, so. This is with regard to the old Norwood Road tender.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Primary objective today is to briefly give a project overview of Old Norwood Road, which we've been working with Public Works Peter Lawson. The section of Old Norwood Road that we're looking at for reconstruction is from County Road 30 up to the new long-term care facility. Primary objective in this section here is it's about 400 meters of linear roadway. And if we could maybe go to the next. So currently, in the bottom left-hand corner, it just kind of depicts and illustrates the current setting and environment. So it's what we would say a rural cross-section, open ditches, no curb and gutters, no sidewalks. So right now there's no connectivity between the new care home and County Road 30. The area is serviced by buried underground water and sanitary sewers, but no storm sewers. So what we would be looking at is to facilitate that is the installation of new concrete sidewalks. So if we kind of focus on the bottom right-hand corner, it kind of depicts what the environment would change or I guess on reconstruction look like. So it'd be the implementation of a 5-foot sidewalk, which meets current AODA standards, provides connectivity to County Road 30 and the new care facility. In conjunction with that, we would be looking at placing roadside concrete curb and gutters to control and maintain the overland stormwater, collecting the surface drainage. So we would be infilling the roadside ditches, create more of an urban environment similar to the other streets in the municipality or in the township. The existing sanitary sewer and water mains would remain in place, so it'd be new storm sewers alone. Would be just for the next few slides. So to date, currently our offices have done some of the preliminary engineering. We went out, surveyed the area site, and come up with some of the design concepts that we're showing here. Essentially what's depicted here is the area is shaded in gray is the new design. I know it's kind of hard to see how it fits in, but basically everything fits generally in with the width of the existing roadway. The big change would be on the north side of the road. There'd be a 1.5 meter grass strip and then new sidewalk, which would be located on the north side of the road. And then maybe if we just carry it forward, and that would carry again, as I mentioned before, right up to the new long-term care home. Once we get to the east side of the main entrance of the long-term care home, it would be just curb and gutter with new asphalt roadway, and sidewalk would end at the proposed entrance, as there's no need to reach beyond. Maybe the next slide. So again, it's more just a brief project overview. So where we're at with everything right now, we're just kind of looking for I guess approval to proceed with the proposed cross section that we do have. Following that is finalizing the designs and issuance of contractor bidding to proceed into construction in 2024 for this year.
Okay, Thank you. Yeah, the only question I had, I was trying to read those drawings as far as for the south side of Old Norwood Road, would there be a mountable curb or something on that side too, up to there, or?
Yeah, so on the north and south side of the road, maybe if you want, we can go back to. Yeah, so in the bottom right-hand corner, that's kind of the illustration. So again, we'd have sidewalk on the north, curb on the north, and on the south side, it would be a mountable concrete curb and gutter as well. And then the infilling of all the ditches along the current roadside.
Okay, very good. Council, got any questions or go ahead?
Yeah, sir. Thank you for presentation, Pat. Just in terms of time frame, down here, we have proceeded construction summer 2024. I realize it says here we still need some drawings and certain documents before we go to tender.
Yeah.
The tender process is what, 3-4 weeks?
What I would, I don't want to say it's a simple project, nothing is simple anymore, but there's not a lot of unique or special items with this.
Okay.
You know, there's no electrical components or anything like that. It's readily sourced material available. So I guess looking at timeframes, a project of this magnitude, we'd usually do a 2-week tender call.
Okay.
So timing, we've been working in behind the scenes right now, so there's a lot of pre-designed stuff already put to paper, so now it's just implementing into.
So we're looking good for having it done in 2024 though, fully complete.
That's correct, yeah, so we would be looking at basically, my goals would be to issue tender for May.
Okay.
So we would finalize designs throughout April, issue tender May, which would I think hit maybe the end of May, second week of, or second council in May possibly.
Just they're really moving along up there with the old age home, right?
They are.
It's not due to be done, I think it's told, but near the end of next summer.
Yeah,
But it would be nice to have all that kind of done and out of the way, cleaned up for, you know.
that's correct.
Not hanging around. So.
Yeah, and then again, as I said before, based on the scope, it's we're looking at 400 lineal meters and there's not a lot of
Thank you.
basically.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation. It's like the deputy mayor said, everything's coming along up there and this is really gonna add to the area, so.
Through you, Mayor. How disruptive is that going to be for the long-term care? Because there's a lot of activity on the site and will be more as we go along. Is it fairly I know they can come in from the other way, but
Yeah, no, very valid, very good point and question. So we've run across this instance before with a joint partnership. So primarily the storm sewer would be located on the south side of the road. So irregardless of construction, EMS services have to be provided access. So we looked at it in twofold, access being provided from Highway 7 on the east end of it.
Mhm.
If that could be an option to facilitate construction to speed things up. Alternatively, it would be down to 1 lane on the west side of, or the west half of Old Norwood Road.
thank you.
So I think as a wrap up, like this tender is important to get it done, like the deputy mayor said, before the end of the year. Is one of the agreements that we had in place. The other tender that we have to get out, and it's totally separate thing. I'm sure we'll be talking about it in the future but it needs to get out too, like a tender going out in May. Like you say, it's a small tender, so it should be okay, but we have a major one going out too that's not out yet. And between the two of them, I always like to see them go out in February. It's too bad that we couldn't get them out, at the beginning of the construction season, but hopefully it works well, because I always worry about pricing when we get into these late tenders. So sometimes they're a little bit jacked up because they're late coming out. So I guess we'll see when this goes out, how it looks for the price. So okay, so no other questions? All right then, so I'll look for a motion to receive the delegation then.
Motion to proceed to tender.
I'll proceed to tender, okay? Yeah. Deputy Mayor is moving that and Councillor Doherty seconding that. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. So. All right, then, so the next item. So, yeah, so the next item here is, staff reports for information, and, we have one here with regards to the water pulling station. Is there any questions around that? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, so yeah,
sorry, so yeah, so we have to report for information. Is there any questions around that?
yeah, just quickly,
Yeah.
Pete, sorry, here, I'm just gonna dial up. We have the numbers there in terms of, the cost. 70,000 for, I guess the station itself, and then it's 43,000 for the installation. Which is nice to see that the number, kept that number down. Thank you very much. Could you just walk me through the 43,000, so what the installation cost, what that would entail in terms of?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, to Deputy Mayor, and it's all the utilities, so storm, hydro, water, preparation, grading, and pavement is
So the paving's included in that?
included in that.
And do we
yes.
know what size of, how much paving we're gonna be laying down up there, or roughly?
Roughly, we're gonna have 2 lanes coming in off of county Concession Street, and then we're gonna make a circle, just like the previous budget.
So drive around?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Pete.
All right, any other questions around that item? So the recommendation here is that and I've lost yours. Here it is, that this report be received for information. Moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor, that's carried. Okay, next, we'll move into staff reports with follow-up action. And first item here is George Street. So.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. The province of Ontario has announced the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund that will help municipalities repair, rehabilitate, and expand critical water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. So with this grant, HBM has 2 possible applications, being the second and final phase of George Street reconstruction or the wastewater treatment plant. In this report, staff is recommending that we apply for George Street, as the wastewater treatment plant still has an outstanding grant that we have not yet heard the final answer on, roughly $5.5 million grant that is outstanding. So this report recommends that we apply with the County of Peterborough for the completion of George Street.
So that's the second page, right?
Second phase, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. So there's a recommendation here. I don't know, any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay,
Just the comment, I guess. I realize that we have 2 options here, in discussing this with the CEO, and I kind of agree with staff in terms of, we already have an outstanding grant out. Obviously, we haven't heard about it, so maybe it doesn't look that great, but I wouldn't want to jeopardize that application, you know, if something did come through. And I think we're all pretty much in agreement in terms of moving ahead with phase 2 of George Street and not leaving a half-built road in the middle of our town, right? So I'll gladly move that motion and hopefully get this phase 2 started.
and that section fits right in with the criteria because with the growth in that area, like the Jamboree property there is our growth area, and if anything comes up there, we can't grow without this infrastructure. So Councillor Flacker, go ahead.
Second.
You're seconding that? Okay, so moved by Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Flagler. Any other questions around this? All in favor? And that's carried. Yeah, if you like. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you wanted to ask them while they're here.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin. Our friends at Jewel Engineering have stayed in the council chamber to answer any questions regarding this project. So if there are any questions, I think we should ask them now before they they leave after this report.
Go ahead.
You want to-
Go ahead.
Thanks again, Pat. So just in terms of this, obviously, we're moving ahead with this now. I've heard rumors that we're gonna be working with the county in terms of moving ahead with this. So do we know when possibly we could have this tender out?
Phase two?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you are correct. It is a joint application similar to phase one. I guess design of the phase two project is probably sitting about 75-80%. So there's still some finalization works for there. The criteria though with the Hughes application funding is to have it shovel ready for September. So that would, I guess if you look at, if I back everything up, we'd probably be tendering in mid-July, give or take.
And just in terms of moving forward, so if all this proceeded as we hope it will, in terms of time frame, we would just move from phase one right into phase two, basically, right?
That's correct, yeah, so.
As long as the funding streams come through.
That's correct, yeah, so with the phase two, because of the township not being notified of award and now you're into September. Lovely North American climate, where it's a very short construction season, so I would envision the works in 2024 for phase two to be minimal, maybe some investigation work, but works of least disruption. So primarily it would be through the calendar fiscal years of 25 and 26, the phase two.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, George Street's one of the biggest projects we have in this area and probably one of the most expensive we've done. So we just want to keep moving on it. Like the deputy mayor said, we don't want to stop halfway. We told the county that too, that once we start phase one, it would be nice to get phase two done. Phase three is another story right now, but these two are in so bad a shape that we need it done. So thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Pat? Well, thank you. Okay, that's it. No, it's okay. There's no weird directions. Okay, so the next item on here is the strategic plan. Meeting. Yes.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Council has commenced a strategic planning process. And earlier this year, a survey was put out to the community, both online and paper. That survey period has now closed. Also, there were 2 public meetings held to gain input from the public, and those were held at the Line Center. Those now concluded. So now our consultant, Praxis Consulting, is working on collating and tabulating all the information that's been received and would like to have a session with council. So staff is proposing Wednesday, May 22nd for that strategic plan session. As the calendar falls, typically there would be a county council meeting on that Wednesday following our regular Tuesday meeting, but as the calendar falls, there is no county council meeting on that Wednesday, so it seems like a good day to fit this in.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? There's a recommendation here, so
I'll move.
you're gonna make the recommendation? Okay, moved by Councillor Flagler, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next item here is.
Sorry, question. How many responses did we get on the survey?
It was 526.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see that. Thank you for that. That's a good number, is it not?
Yes, so through you, Mayor Martin, 526 responses to the strategic plan survey. 522 of those electronically and 4 by paper.
In terms of attachment or what we got back, that's a pretty good.
I believe that would be the highest response rate ever in a survey in our township.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, and thank you to the residents who took part in the survey.
Okay, so the next item here is private road grant application.
Through you, Mayor Martin, we have 2 private road applications, private road grant applications here with this report. Fire Route 82 Road Association has submitted applications for both Powder Road 82 and 82D. Both having repairs this year. And the grant program does indicate that only one per road association is permitted. However, both of these will apply, and if council chooses to allow both applications, I would suggest that we amend the grant policy to permit a maximum of 2 applications in one grant cycle.
Okay, so, this grant, you know, when did we start it? A couple of years ago, and, you know, so there's been a bit of tweaking over the years as far as trying to get it right. There's always, you know, room for improvement, and like the CAO said, there is an opening here about the 2 roads. It was, most private roads have offshoots. In the initial, plan was that it was 1 grant per road. So 82 is 1 road, and then the offshoots would be a part of that road. That being said, the recommendation here is to open up, 2 roads per application. So I guess you're counting the offshoots, and that's, you know, that can be done. I guess that's what it's all about, right? It hasn't had a real huge uptake, and I think every year we'll be reviewing these grants at budget time to see if they're being used well. One thing I had said to the CAO, as far as the second road on any given road, it would have been good to have after June or something like that, that you can apply for a second road. But the initial plan was that it would theoretically work for 10 roads out of our 110, well, out of half of the 110 roads, because we do half the roads every year. Theoretically, it would work for half, like for 10 of them, if everybody took the maximum. But that being said, this is an option here for council, and we can do 2 roads per association. So that would be the, you know, like the offshoots on any given road. So it's up to council on how this is done. But we can go with the recommendation there. Go ahead.
Yes,
Councillor
I'd like
Parker.
to do a motion recommending the recommendation 2 applications for private road grant.
Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Parker, that we do the staff recommendation, seconded by Councillor Clement. Questions, comments?
Yeah, just, through you, Mr. to the CEO, I guess, have we received any other private road grant applications so far in 2024?
Through you, Mayor Martin, in 2024, so far, council has approved 1 other application.
So a lot of the roads are having their first AGM now, so I'm expecting this is where it probably will happen. If anything's gonna happen, is they're all getting together here in May. So we'll see what happens moving forward. So, okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. Any other questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and the next item here is the joint meeting with North Kawartha. Something we talked about. Well, so.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Council at an earlier council meeting did discuss a joint meeting with the council of the township of North Kawartha. So this report confirms that the date proposed is Tuesday, April 23rd at 1 p.m. And simply ask council to confirm that date, that everyone is available, and that if you have any other items for the agenda, they be submitted by 1 week from today.
Okay, any questions around that recommendation? Favor of the date, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb. Seconder, Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so next item here is the correspondence action items. We have 2 here, the first being tag day for the hospital. Something that happens, I think, every year, but we're asking for permission to hold the tag day on May 17th.
Motion to approve.
Motion to support that.
Or, sorry.
Yeah, and seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. And the next item here is the Wounded Warriors. Did we support this before you? No, okay. So what's the tab here?
Is support?
Or sure. There a number?
Is there a number? Yeah, I'm thinking there's a. I think it was around 200 or 2 something. You have it.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, the 110 page is $295 plus tax, $333.35.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Doherty. Any questions? All in favor?
Second.
And that's carried. So, yeah, so we're gonna move into county updates there.
So. County meeting March 20th, March 21st. Kind of what we had here, we had Randy, because we had Randy do
Yeah.
the presentation, so. Somewhat similar of what you had there, of what we got today, council, from Randy and Patricia. As well, there was he made a presentation on fire-based tiered response. There was a new amendment to the agreement. For that, and then there was kind of an update over permanent entrances on county roads. So I believe that's going to be, at the moment, it's set at I believe 150 meters between, isn't it?
Yeah, something like
And they're
that.
looking at moving it to a lower number, somewhere around 100. They haven't settled on the number, but I believe the number they're looking at is moving that to 100 in terms of severances and stuff like that. If people want to, it's mostly around kind of farmland and trying to get people to build houses and making the building envelope a little easier to attain. So, and that's about it. It was another short meeting with the county. So,
Yeah, so the county roads have a distance separation because of this, most of them are higher speed roads, so they don't want driveways every 10 feet, so. They've always had a bylaw, but that being said, it came forward to update it and,
it's
you
just
know,
becoming
yeah.
too prohibitive in these
For
rural areas
severances.
where certain farmers are trying to, piece off land to build houses, a lot of them for
Yeah.
their families or whatnot, and they just. They can't even get an entrance onto their property because of this bylaw, so hopefully that'll alleviate some of these problems moving forward.
yeah, and the one other item was the Peterborough County Federation of Ag Awards. And Larry Jinkerson there with Selwyn, they got the longstanding service award for farming, and the Payne family in Norwood, they received 2023 Family of the Year. So yeah, so that was nice to see that they're being recognized at the Ag Society. So other than that, that was pretty well it for the county. Questions?
Through Mr. Red, you said something about the fire agreement. What does that? What was that about? Or
Sorry, Mr. Doherty. Fire-based tiered response agreement. If you want me to get into it.
well, no, it doesn't affect us, I guess. That's
Well, on a county level, I guess, yeah.
okay. No, but there's no trickle down.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, sorry, yeah, I apologize.
No,
No, all be county. Randy's stuff, not Ray's stuff.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Motion to receive the county report, moved by Councilor Clement, seconder. Councilor George, all in favor, and that's carried. So there's no written notice of motion or oral notice of motion. Other business, we have nothing. Bylaws. We do have a closed session to go into, so I'll look for a motion that we go into closed.
Does our youth counselor have anything to add before the end of the meeting?
Yeah, it said the next meeting should probably have something more, but if you have anything to add about Norwood or anything like that, as far as next year, we'll probably put you on the liaison report area and you can update us on Norwood and what's happening over there. If you have anything for today, that would be great.
Nothing too much, but we do have like we're planning things for the school so far. I think we're coming up with a few dances, semi-formals. We just had an Easter egg hunt at school with these like little like laminated paper eggs for the classrooms to win prizes. That was really fun. The students were really engaged in that. But nothing too much, no.
Okay, well, yeah, so like I say, probably like we just did with the county report. You can maybe at the next meeting bring us back. I know you're gonna be going into exams after that, but Guinevere will be at our first meeting of each month, so at May meeting and the June meeting, and then in June she's gonna be busy getting ready for exams, so.
If she's gonna be that well spoken, I'll let her do the county report.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, all right then, so a motion to well, we'll take a recess and go into closed. Motion to go into closed, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Flagler, all in favor, that's carried, then we'll be open. Motion to resume the open session. Moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Councillor Doherty, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, so the only thing here is a confirming bylaw for today's meeting.
No, you do the.
I usually don't act on it, so if somebody want to move and confirm the meeting today.
Confirm the meeting.
Moved by Councillor Flagler, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor, and that's carried, and motion to adjourn is. Deputy Mayor Webb and seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much.